people who want to know what is the Keith Andrew Network, the whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities, and never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be, so prove them and still amount to something.
Hello, thanks for having me.
No, the honor is all mine. Now, the first question I want to ask you is make our episode a lot different from the first one. First one, basically, we were breaking the ice. You know, what did you do this? What did you do now? Now, we're actually, well, I consider you a friend. Now, when we're friends, we can bypass and ask the other hard-hitting questions. And you can ask me anything you want. But the first thing I want to do is what is coming up on the horizon for you? And do you have anything to promote?
Well, you know, I've got a website now. It's been up for a little while. There's some tweaking that we still have to do, but it's www.stephanienadolny.com. So just my name.com. And right now I am doing interviews like this during the week and booking Comic-Con appearances and comic book store appearances. So most of those are listed on my website. They're anywhere from Texas all over the South. I'm booking some events in Mississippi and Alabama will be this weekend. That'll be, let's see, I'm not sure when this will be posted. So
later on today.
Okay, yeah, March 17th will be Biloxi, Mississippi at Jack's Comic Book Store. Geeked and Gamers event in Mobile, Alabama this Saturday and Sunday. I have bringing along my OG colleague, OG Volma. Tiffany Volmer will be with me for the whole event. Then we have one more comic book store in Gulfport. I'm so sorry I don't have the name of the place. That'll be March 20th. And then the rest of my events I'll put on my website. I do have some coming up in Oklahoma and other parts of Texas that I can think of off the top of my head. But I'm really excited about the out-of-state events that are coming up. I know that we also have KamehamehaCon 5 this year. That's a big one. The whole entire event is Dragon Ball Z. It's located north of Dallas, Texas. And that's going to be May 12th through the 14th. I will be in New York, May 5th and 6th in Sarasota for the Sarasota Anime Festival or Anime Convention. And then on my birthday weekend, the 19th, 20th, and 21st, I will be in Denver, outside of Denver, Colorado for Retro Expo with my friends Scott and Gail. They're running that one. And that's kind of all I have memorized right now as far as from now to then. But I do have some various events planned for the summer. Including a really big one at the end of July. I'll be at Rhode Island Anime Con. That's going to be super fun. That'll be like the 27th, 28th of July. And then I have a really cool event in Portland, Oregon, actually Salem. That's going to be the Mid-Valley Anime Expo. That will be the first weekend in June. I'm going a little bit out of order, but June 5th, I think, June 5th and 6th will be Oregon, which is a whole new playing field for me. I have never been to Oregon, so I'm excited about getting to meet and greet the fans out that way. I'm pretty excited about seeing the sights too. It's beautiful up there.
No, absolutely. The only thing I have planned, well, first off, you do laps around me because you are fantastic, and I'm not kissing your butt or anything. You are fantastic, and for me, the only thing I have planned is June 10th. It's my 10-year anniversary. Plan B is to do it on Zoom. This will be official last time to do it on Zoom because doing 9-year, 8-year, it gets stupid after a while because no one wants to repeat themselves over and over and over. So I'm like, a lot of people are telling me, go write a book. Okay, well, how can I do that? Well, it's 1,000 episodes. It's been 10 years. Why not sit down with the people who I interviewed and we can have a special event? So I get pictures for the book. I got pictures for the website. And it's good marketing. It's like an actual connection. It isn't just, hey, some guy on the screen. You get to meet and support someone with disabilities. So Plan B will be June 10th at 5 p.m. if people want to write it down. That's Plan B. Plan A, I'm working on Warwick, New York, New Jersey, maybe New York
Uh-huh.
City, a place to rent a place. For me, I like to be on stage because I looked at so many places. There's a wedding hall. I'm like, why the hell do I want to rent a wedding hall? I'm not getting married. Then it's like, do it in a church. It's like, no, I don't need to be struck by lightning or anything. So I'm
Yeah.
like, well, maybe the school that I went to, I can ask them, hey, it's a possibility, it's on a weekend. It's a possible to use, I can speak. Is it possible to use the gymnasium? Is it possible to use the auditorium? And then you can have the
Right.
students involved, give them extra credits. Say they worked with someone with disabilities, they can do the lights and
Right.
the sound and make it bring people together. So there's so many
Right.
things, but this is not about me. This is about you. But you brought up an interesting point,
Yeah.
and I looked at your IMDb. But you actually, I think you mentioned this in the first time, but it said a trivia fact. You auditioned to be Chi Chi, Bulma, Videl, Android 18, and Chow Chu.
I did. I did. I auditioned for what appeared to be female characters in the audition scripts. Naturally, being a female, I just went in prepared to read for female roles. But alas, I was not cast as a female role. I was cast as a young boy character by the name of Gohan from Dragon Ball Z. So that's kind of how my career in voiceover and anime voiceover began. So who would have thought, that I'd be mostly the voices of boys, young boys.
No, you want me to ask you, do you think, and that's gonna sound like an oxymoron, does it matter if a woman does a guy's voice?
No, of course not. I mean, there's voice talent that can do both. And some do. I mean, I don't know. I do female characters as well. But I also mimic and do impressions of male characters. I do just as many female as I do male, but I dabbled in a little bit of both. And I also, make up my own character voices, male or female.
But
Sometimes they're animal voices and singing songs in animal voices because I'm a singer, first and foremost. So yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon really for women to be cast as young boys,
no, the
as
reason
young
I
boys.
bring it up, and I don't see the issue in it, it probably isn't. But the reason I bring it up is Bart Simpson was played by a girl. And there's a couple other ones too, but I didn't write them down. But
Bobby
as long
Hill from Being King of the Hill is a female. I looked that one up because I do an impression of Bobby from King of the Hill. I wanted to know if it was a female behind the voice.
no,
And it is.
that's terrific. As long as you're able to do the voice, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You are the
Exactly.
character, and you're in making an impression and enjoying the childhood, but you're leaving an impression on.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
So I mean the cool thing is I have an open door. I mean I try to not limit myself. If there's an opportunity to audition for a role, whether I get the role or not, it's nice to challenge myself to see if I can come up with a unique voice for that character.
well, there's two things I want to ask you, but I'll ask you the first one first. All those behind the scenes, do you think it's, oh, this is so cool, I didn't know this person did this, that person? Do you think doing behind the scenes helps or does it hurt? Because let me give you an example. For Dragon Ball, they all are great talents. But if you watch, for me, for an example, I watch behind the scenes of Bewitch. And then I used to have a crush on Elizabeth Montgomery. Then I used to show her
Yeah.
behind the scenes, and say, wow, she's really a bitch. And it's
Oh,
uncensored. And one of the stories is one story. One of the stories is she left her husband and went with the director, and then she went to France. I'm like, if you were trying to kill Bewitched for me, this
yeah,
documentary was the nail in the coffin, because before the documentary, wonderful woman, woman next door, that's someone you want to
yeah,
marry, be with.
yeah,
But then you watch behind the scenes, it's kind of like, wow, this is
yeah,
really depressing. What is your
yeah.
opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I've had similar situations where I've appeared at an event, maybe a large Comic Con where they've got some big name actors and actresses, namely ones that from TV shows or movies that I grew up with in the 70s and 80s, and some of the 90s. And every once in a while I'll meet a celebrity that's not so friendly. I don't know if it's necessarily they're having a bad day or what, but it's always a disappointment, I think, when someone goes and meets who they would like to ideally be a welcoming and kind person that's easy to work with, that is a friendly, nice, approachable person. And it's not always the case. So it's disappointing, I think. So I think it's unfortunate that some of the people in, like, say, Hollywood or celebrities all over the world, if they allow that ego to take over, or they just might not be a warm and friendly kind of person. I just think that's a disappointment for the fans who look up to these celebrities, voice actors, performers, musicians, whatever it be. So, I mean, I'm not against any behind the scene type thing. I mean, I would be willing to do one. I think they'd be interesting, but I think that depending on the point of view of who's conducting the documentary or the behind the scenes, interview or documentary, like you said, it's probably put together from the point of view of the person producing the show, which could be who knows who that is, and if this information is accurate or not. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, I've definitely had some disappointments by some of my I don't want to necessarily call them idols or anything, but I'd like to think that some of the other guests at some of the events that I frequent or I'm a guest at, that they would be nice people. And it's just not always the case. Sometimes they are. They're super nice. Like I just met Emily Swallow from The Mandalorian and Supernatural. I'd never met her before. We were at an event in Tupelo. We all had brunch together, a really small group of people, and she was a kind person. And I ended up we ended up sharing information, and she might even utilize my content, my TikTok social media guy, because she's looking for one. So I had good experiences, and then you have some not so good experiences. Some don't want to be approached at all.
Right.
They might be whisked to and from, and they may be back in the green room, and I may or may not even get a chance to meet them. Some of them don't do videos, some don't do pictures. I think it just all depends, you know. Definitely don't want to burst someone's bubble because it can
No,
be very disheartening.
no, you're absolutely right. And as a wise man once said, Jason David Frank, before he passed, let me ask you, when someone walks up to you, and this goes into the speech of what he was going to say, but let me ask you this. Someone walks up to you and say, I think the world of you, you're my hero. Do you ever get tired of hearing that?
No, I have grown up with as a new kid, a misfit, always the new girl moving around. So my self-esteem has been horrible. It's better now, but I come from a broken childhood with a lot of wow, I suffer from a lot of PTSD from that. And so I just don't ever let it get to my head. If anything, it helps humble me even more. It actually does the opposite. So, but I definitely don't get tired of it. I mean, I think it's very sweet to have adoring fans, and I don't take them for granted at all.
Absolutely. Two things. And my idol, Brett the Hitman Hart, says, never take your fans for granted. And as I mentioned with Jason David Frank, the day
Wow.
you say to the whoever you look up to, there's so many people, but the day you say to them, I think the world of you, you're my hero, and they're like, yeah, whatever. That's the day you should stop idolizing them, because it's because of you they are where they are. So the day they
Right.
like start thumbing their nose down, like Bruce Willis, Will Smith, they have their heads way up their ass. We all
Right.
start on the bottom. You're going to meet the same
Right.
people going up as you are going down. So number one, don't burn any bridges. And I should know I have
Right.
diarrhea on the mouth. But
It's
don't.
okay. Yeah, those are good. That's good, wise words.
That's true. You meet the same people going up. Don't burn any bridges. Never forsake your fans, because if it wasn't for your fans, you wouldn't be sitting where you're sitting right now.
Exactly. I'm always very, very gracious, and I get fan art, original fan art, and I take it all home. I know some of the celebrities will crumple them up and throw them away right there or right after the person leaves. I think that's just horrible etiquette, bad manners, and everything all about that. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, the fans are the ones that listened to your voice and watched you as me, whatever, whomever, as they've grown up. And uh, there's a lot to be said for that. And I mean, I personally love to get in the trenches and meet the fans and their families. That's like the best part of what I do. So I really cherish those moments. And a lot of those moments have really gotten me out of my darkest days, and it brought me out of the darkest times of my life. So I absolutely agree with you wholeheartedly. The fans are amazing. They're anime fans in particular, from what I've noticed, are very loyal. They're supportive, encouraging, positive people. And they're just like misfits as well. We all go through something in our lives, and we have struggles and demons that we have to fight every day. So I cherish my fans. They're amazing.
Absolutely. And now the next question I want to ask you, as a woman behind the table, what are the do's and don'ts? Because you look at some of the wrestling fans, and the same thing with anime fans. So anime fans or wrestling fans, you're gonna meet some great people, and you're gonna meet some people are like, who was this? Who moved a rock? It's. I'll give you an example. Every time I take a picture with a woman, I say, "Is it okay if I put my arm around you?" Now, from your point of view, what was your experience like? Do people ask for permissions? Did people like, I don't know, not to impose on you, but I want to see if I'm as a woman's
Yeah.
point of view, did they ask, is it okay if I put my arm around you? Is it okay we do this? Or do they just randomly expect it? Oh, she's been doing this for so many times. She doesn't care. So what is your expertise on the do's and don'ts?
For that particular situation, I've, for the most part, been approached and asked if it's okay. If they don't ask, they'll usually mostly just stay put. And then if I offer to put my arm around them and or their children or their significant other, that's when they'll reciprocate. So I think most people, especially males, for approaching me as a female, have been polite and have asked, is it okay if I put my arm around you? Especially coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Some people just, and then some people just don't want to be touched at all, or they don't feel it's appropriate to touch another person in any way. So I mean, I get it. I get all kinds of different circumstances and different types of situations. So I'm just always prepared for it. And if I welcome it, I mean, I'm a kind of a huggy person. I'm definitely a friendly person from the down south. So I've got that Southern charm. So I'm usually okay with it. But I always appreciate when they ask. I think that's nice. It's polite, especially being that these people are people I've mostly have never met before. So I think that it's very charming and polite to ask ahead of time.
And besides, you can always open a can of whoop ass on someone. It,
A Super Saiyan can of whoop ass. Exactly.
what part of,
It's
if
like,
you don't
hey,
mind,
buddy, step back.
Well, if you don't mind me for asking, what part of Texas are you from? Well, based.
Uh, Based in Dallas Fort Worth. Dallas Fort Worth. Yeehaw! I have lived in parts of north of Houston growing up, and I also lived on the border of Mexico as a child. Eagle Pass, 1 mile from the Mexico border. So I've lived in all over Dallas Fort Worth, and then prior to that, parts of Houston, and then but I'm born in Memphis, Tennessee. So I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee, but all of that's considered the South. I've got family in Mississippi, Tennessee, and parts of Rhode Island. So I mean, there's a lot of diversity there, but yeah, for the most part, and since the 80s, I guess I was in middle school. I've been in the North Dallas, Texas region.
Reason I bring it up, it's a lot of big, as you know, probably, I'm a huge wrestling fan. You know, Victoria,
Yeah.
Texas, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Houston, Texas, Booker T, Sanatorio. Yeah, I'm butchering the name.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I know. That San area, you know, Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
some,
Yeah. Victoria is near Houston. Yeah. I've seen signs for it when I've traveled down there. I get down to Houston occasionally, more often than some of the others. Houston, San Antonio, and then other parts of Texas
I know
within driving
I
range.
was butchering that word. I apologize. It's San Antonio, but it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
my things to do list. But did you've been traveling? What were some of your favorite places you've been traveling to and want to go back to?
Right. Well, most recently, I made trips to both San Diego and Tupelo. San Diego is absolutely beautiful. I was able to go down there with my business partner and manager, best friend, Dan Bradford. He came along with me. We were able to rent a car and see the sights for a solid day. That was absolutely beautiful. Saw the beach and the beautiful terrain. And then even more recently, Tupelo, Mississippi, which is actually less than an hour from Memphis. So that trip meant a lot to me because I got close to where I'm originally from, which is where a lot of my cousins and aunts and uncles are born and still live. So that was a special trip for me. The event itself was kind of small, but it was very cozy, and I got to do a lot of interaction with families and kids. I love children. Um, and I've also been able to visit New Zealand and Australia, and I absolutely, without a doubt, would love to go back. I have been to Australia more recently in 2018, but New Zealand, I haven't been back since 2004. And I would love to go back and see some of the people and friends that I've made there and meet some new fans of all ages. And then I'd like to get over to Europe. I went to the UK once, where it wasn't there very long, only 2 days and 2 nights. So I really didn't get to see anything or visit anywhere. But I'd love to go back to Europe, and I'd like to go to Canada sometime, maybe Toronto, or I know some anime festivals up there that I'd very much like to be invited to.
No, absolutely. And hey, if you ever come to like New York City, there's a tons of great see. There's one in Poughkeepsie, New York, Hudson Valley Comic Con.
Okay.
There is New York Comic Con. I would really hope you can show up. Yeah, we can actually hang
Yeah.
out in person.
Yeah,
I will.
I'm hoping to get that one on the calendar this year. I'm gonna have to check into that and see if I can reach out to them and get the right person involved.
Well, if you do, I would love to buy you a cup of coffee.
I love that. That'd be greatness.
Now, you mentioned New Zealand, and you mentioned another one, the other area. It's in Australia. You mentioned both areas in Australia. The reason I bring it up is you would think as a talk show host, I would remember things. But you mentioned New Zealand, Lord of the Rings comes to mind, and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was actually filmed there. Did you ever want to
Oh,
be a part of both Lord of the Rings and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers?
I hadn't heard of them until I was in the Comic Con circuit. It was not in my it's not wrapped up in my own personal nostalgia. For whatever reason, whatever limited channels, limited cable we had when I was a child or when I was growing up, what I ended up watching most of and was either Wonder Woman with Linda Carter. We as kids we watched Dukes of Hazzard. We also watched Chips, some other, reruns, Gilligan's Island, Brady Bunch, stuff like that. In the cartoon realm, I think I grew up watching Looney Tunes and Underdog and Smurfs. But I had never watched, even at my daycare, we didn't watch the Power Rangers. I think they might be a little bit past my time. So, if I would have had a shot at auditioning for something like that, I would have been very interested. But I'm a musical theater person. I sing and I dance and I act and voice act. So anything theatrical like that, if I could have auditioned, I would have.
What about you mentioned the 80s, and I love the 80s and early 90s. That's when cartoons were at their peak. Now it's kind of like it's all right, but you can see
Yeah.
a big decline in the artwork. So like, oh, you need to invest in this too. Like, no, let's just throw it out there. No one really cares. Cheaper is not better. It just means you're working half-ass. But if you're gonna do
Yeah.
something right, do it right, or you don't do it at all. But
Mhm.
were you a fan of the Super Friends?
A little bit. I didn't I wasn't immersed in that nearly as much as some of the other shows we mentioned, but I do remember the Super Friends. I want to say probably at daycare, and as I got older, it would be on after school. We A big part of my childhood also involved MTV, music television, back when they were really playing music videos. I'm talking about the very beginning of which I believe was either 1980 or 1981 was the birth of MTV, I believe 1981. So a lot of my free time and summers were spent either riding my bike or running around outside playing Atari 5200 or going to the arcade and watching MTV. So I definitely have a big fascination with these arcades that are popping up, these really cool arcades that anyone can go for all ages, and then you just pay for a certain amount of time, or you go there to have beverages with your friends. So I think that's really cool that these old nostalgia arcades are being built up, and it's a great place to go and hang out at any age, really.
No, I agree with you. Now, my last question for you, wrapping up. What is your opinion about the pandemic? Do you think it's going to be over? It's not going to be over? And you don't have to answer if you don't want to. But
Yeah.
at this point, after 4 years, people are just, well, 3.5, people are just burnt out. My dad said in April, he's got to start going out. He's got to start doing things. 3 years, he had enough being under house arrest. So with the Comic
Yeah.
Cons, do you feel, do you take precaution? Do you like, what, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do?
Yeah. Based on my most recent experience in doing Comic Cons and comic book shows, I do see the occasional attendee guest still wearing a mask, being out and about. They may or may not have somebody close to them that's got some kind of an immunosuppressant disease, or they're trying to make sure that they're extra careful to not bring anything home to somebody who might be elderly or immunosuppressed. So I certainly, I'm a live and let live kind of really laid back person. So I really am just okay with whatever people are comfortable doing. But I agree with you when you say, like, your father or whomever, I'm ready to get out there too. I mean, I remember, that's for somebody like me who's a people person, not just my job, not just my livelihood, but like my whole fascination with life is other people and socializing and connecting, and it's just simply not the same. I mean, we're connecting now and we're online and we can see each other and hear each other, but there's something that's a special element about being in front of someone in person, whether it be working or shopping at the grocery store or talking one-on-one with the fans, at these events. There's just really nothing like that. You just can't capture that moment on digitally, or watching a live concert of musicians. I'm a musician, so I am a singer, so watching and listening to a live performance as opposed to on TV or in a movie they both offer something special, but I think that the one-on-one and being in front of in front of an audience, I'm sorry, in the audience or even in front of the audience, it's just much more special. Prevent, if possible, this from happening again.
Absolutely. It's going to kick us off if I don't pay for it. But wrapping up, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest. And stay tuned to part 3. I'm looking forward to it. Keep in touch.
Okay.
And make sure to like and subscribe to the Keith Andrew Network.
I have seen everything that has ever happened, ever will happen, ever could happen, and yet, what the hell is this?